Today on Fear and Greed, ASIC accuses the former directors of failed airline Regional Express of misleading investors. Hundreds of retail employees to lose their jobs as a major retailer closes stores. And Elon Musk's SpaceX is now worth more than $500 billion. Plus, soaring coffee prices and tumbling business sentiment. Welcome to Fear and Greed, daily business news for people who make their own decisions. It is Thursday, the 12th of December, 2024. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Morning, Michael. 12th of the 12th, 24. There's some serious symmetry in that date.
Oh, you are way too satisfied by numbers, Sean.
Mm-hmm.
You're working on the right podcast for someone who loves numbers,
true.
aren't you?
Yeah.
The main story this morning, the corporate watchdog has accused 4 directors of failed airline Regional Express, including former Howard government minister John Sharp, of misleading the market about the airline's finances.
The Australian Securities and Investments Commission alleges the directors told shareholders there was a path to profitability for Rex when they knew there wasn't a hope. It alleges that the directors failed to disclose a material downgrade even when they should have known in February last year that Rex wasn't going to make it. The company eventually announced a loss in June last year. It actually called in the administrators in July this year. Mr. Sharp yesterday said he will defend the allegations. He said he did nothing wrong. Now, Rex is in administration, and thanks to government funding, it is still flying its regional routes. Where it came a cropper was that it pushed into that Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne market. It was taking on Virgin and Qantas. Didn't work. In the end, it has had to pull back just to its regional routes, and that's with government support.
Sean, a couple of questions about this. Does it really matter, given Rex is already in administration? And the second question, given the government has provided Rex with, what is an $80 million lifeline, I think it is, what are the political implications of this kind of thing?
Well, the second one first. Joe Longo, the head of ASIC, said the treasurer, Jim Chalmers, was briefed about what was going on well ahead of the $80 million bailout that came quite a few weeks ago. Now, I don't know if that money's a loan or a grant. The government hasn't actually told us that, but it certainly allows Rex to keep flying. It might put pressure on the government, but I just don't think the Nationals are going to be particularly upset that the government, the federal government, is funding regional flights. So I'm not sure whether the coalition will put too much pressure on Labor on this one. On the first question, Joe Longo, the ASIC boss, said high standards of corporate governance are critical and underscore a successful business. That's true. Where I think it really matters this time round, I mean, every shareholder counts, and if you list on the ASX, you have to follow the rules. But Rex is just a little bit more than any old company. It's almost national infrastructure. It flies people to regional Australia, which is something that all governments want to happen. As a result, everyone, shareholders, customers, the government, they should be able to trust what Rex says. Now, the ASIC allegation is that you can't trust what Rex says. So it is very serious, and I definitely think this should go to court if that's where it ends up.
All right, moving on, Sean, nearly 500 employees of fashion group Mosaic Brands will lose their jobs as administrators close a number of its well-known retail stores and shutter the Katie's brand forever.
Were you a Katie's buyer, Michael? I'm guessing not. Perhaps for your mother?
It is women's wear, so I didn't shop there personally. Sean, it feels like we're going into a strange place here. Were you a Katie's shopper?
No, I don't think I've ever been to a Katie's store, but I mean, it was sort of probably for the mature woman. Or maybe it wasn't. I mean, I don't know. I've never shopped there. Anyway.
Do you regret asking me that question now just because it's just...
But it's funny. There's a bunch of Mosaic brands, right, that like Miller's and Rivers and Nonny B, which are always in the big malls. I must say I've been into Rivers in my local town, country New South Wales. There was a Rivers.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever been into Nonny B, though.
Yeah, I remember going to Rivers quite a bit in Lismore.
Right. Yeah.
Because you'd get kind of like a winter jacket and boots and stuff like that. Yeah. And it was always quite affordable. Anyway.
Yes. Point is, you may not be able to do that because receivers of Mosaic Brands will close 160 stores. The company went into voluntary administration back in October. While Katie's is being closed totally, the sale process for Mosaic Brand Group continues. Some of the stores like Miller's, Rivers, 90B, some outlets will close. Doesn't mean the whole brand is going to be shut down. Mosaic has about 2,700 employees, more than 700 stores nationwide. It's already exited from a bunch of brands, so Rockman's, Autograph, Crossroads, W Lane, Be Me brands. They've all closed. Hasn't really been a very good year for retailers. Godfrey's went under. I think of Godfrey's as a vacuum cleaner brand, which is primarily what it was. That was in January. Booktopia went into voluntary administration. That one hurt you, Michael, I know.
Yes.
There was the Beston's Global Food Company as well. Not a great year for retailers, really.
Yeah, tough time for retail. The Beston Global Food Company. I'm not hugely familiar with that one.
No, me neither, Michael.
And now, unfortunately, we may never be. Sean, after the show, we've got plenty more still coming up, but afterwards, stick around. There's an interview coming up today with Damien Kasabji, who is the CEO of the Tech Council of Australia.
Yeah, so we talk all about AI and where Australia stands in the AI world, how Australia can grasp the opportunity that artificial intelligence is providing to us, what the government needs to do. It's a great big picture look at one of the mega trends of the next 20, 30, 40 years.
All right, we've got plenty still coming up. We're talking business sentiment. We are talking about Elon Musk's SpaceX being valued at around $500 billion. We're talking about Colgate and Palmolive, a bunch of new products and things. Sean, we've got so much still to come. Stick around. We'll be back in a moment with the rest of the day's business news. Sean, business sentiment fell last month after a short-lived spike, but inflation pressures in the economy look to be easing.
It all comes from the National Australia Bank Business Survey. Pretty good news, really, particularly on the back of the Reserve Bank's comments the day before yesterday. The survey shows business sentiment tumbled in November, although business conditions remain resilient, albeit they're heading lower. Forward-looking indicators in the survey, forward orders, for example, remain quite weak. Now, when I say good news, we don't like it when business sentiment tumbles, obviously. But if we are hoping to get inflation down, this is the sort of survey that suggests it's on the way there. NAB's employment index, for example, is trending lower. That suggests fewer jobs in coming months, or at least less jobs growth is probably more accurate. Also, it does a survey of price pressures. Good guide to inflation. They continue to trend lower. The bottom line from the NAB survey is the economy is slowing and inflation continues to head south.
And Sean, what's the fallout been from the Reserve Bank Board meeting on Tuesday?
Quite remarkable how quickly the mood has swung towards a rate cut in the first half of next year. People are now saying February, April. A lot of emphasis on the slowing of the economy in the commentary over the past 24 hours. This is from the market economists. I think they might be a little bit optimistic still. I still think it's going to be the middle of next year before the Reserve Bank does anything. In markets, the S&P ASX 200 finished down 0.5% to 8,354 points. It's actually a fairly quiet day on the market. Tech stocks were among the worst performers. WiseTech was off 3%. The property companies were among the best. Goodman Group jumped nearly 2%. Big miners were mixed. Banks were lower. Wesfarmers jumped 1%.
New South Wales Premier Chris Minns has called an anti-Semitic attack in Woollahra in Sydney disgraceful and disgusting, Sean.
The apparent anti-Semitic slogans were graffitied across two buildings and a car was set alight in Sydney's east yesterday morning. Of course, it follows the firebombing of a Jewish synagogue last week in Melbourne. It's the second attack in Woollahra in Sydney's east. It's home to many Jewish people, including a synagogue. The Prime Minister also spoke about it. He said there was no place for anti-Semitism in Australia. He described it as evil and called for national unity.
Diversified miner South 32 share price fell 4% yesterday after it said escalating civil unrest in Mozambique has slowed transport to and from the company's operations.
South 32 is quite an interesting company, spun out of BHP, mines all sorts of commodities, bauxite, alumina, aluminium, copper, zinc, lead, silver, nickel, manganese. It has mines in Australia, South America and Southern Africa. The mine it's worried about is the Mosa aluminium plant in Mozambique. Yesterday, South 32 put out a statement, said it's looking after the safety and well-being of people. That's its most important role. but it did downgrade what sort of earnings from that particular plant. It just demonstrates sovereign risk. Mozambique's been rocked by protests over disputed elections. At least 100 people have died, according to media reports. Most of them demonstrators shot during clashes with police. Hundreds more have been injured, thousands arrested. Of course, we had Resolute Mining CEO Terence Holohan held captive in Mali until the miner paid a $250 million demand from the government. What happened is happening with South 32. What happened with Resolute Mining does show the risk of mining in some of these regions.
Sean, the Sigma Healthcare Chemist Warehouse retailer could hit the ASX as early as February, with details around the shareholder vote to be released in the next few weeks.
We didn't expect that, actually. It's a $28.9 billion merger. Wouldn't it be a great way to kick off the market next year if we ended up having this deal hit the bourse in February? Sigma wants implementation in the next couple of months. It's already had most of its regulatory agreements, including the ACCC's green light. It just needs shareholders to vote yes.
Now, the chief executive of DAZN has been in Australia this week as the British global sports streaming platform, which is backed by the billionaire businessman Len Blavatnik, assesses a bid for News Corp's Foxtel.
Shay Segev, who previously led London-listed sports betting giant Entain, has been holding meetings in Australia as the company considers whether to make an offer for Foxtel, according to a report in the Financial Review. Foxtel operates its pay television business as well as streaming platforms Kayo Sports and Binge. DAZN has acquired broadcasting businesses over the past 2 years from around the world as it attempts to build a major sports streaming platform. Foxtel is 65% owned by News Corp, 35% owned by Telstra. It's been up for sale since August.
And just quickly, Sean, Australia has a new life insurance brand, Ascender, it is called, after the merger of MLC Life Insurance and Resolution Life.
Now, life insurance may not sound super interesting, but did you know this new business, Ascender, will have 2 million customers, $30 billion of assets under management? I reckon that makes it pretty interesting.
That's big.
Yeah, it's huge because when you fill out, often it's people in superannuation funds.
Oh, yeah.
That, you get your life insurance through super. And so we've got some really big life insurance companies in this country.
It's something that we talk about on our sister podcast, How Do They Afford That, a lot about the importance of actually doing an assessment of your insurance, because a lot of people actually they're not necessarily overinsured, but they have insurance that they are not aware of and that they aren't aware that they are paying for. And it just pays to go and check what you are paying for in your super, what you've got outside of superannuation as well.
Yep.
Just do an insurance audit. There we go.
Yep. Excellent idea. Well, this Ascender Group, it's basically the result of Nippon Life Insurance, a Japanese company. It owns 80% of MLC Life. It bought a group called Resolution Life, which is listed on the London Exchange. So Nippon's bought Resolution. Nippon already owns 80% of MLC Life in Australia. So it means the Aussie subsidiary of Resolution Life now goes to Nippon. So that means Nippon's got Resolution Life in Australia and 80% of MLC Life. The other 20% is owned by National Australia Bank. It was happy to sell it for about $500 million. That was announced yesterday. Slightly tangential, but interesting. The sale by National Australia Bank ends decades of involvement in the life business by Australia's big four banks. We've now had ANZ, Commonwealth Bank, Westpac and National Australia Bank yesterday selling their life insurance businesses over recent years.
That's the end of an era, Sean.
It is. Very appropriate for a life insurance business to talk about an end of an era.
Oh, yeah. Had to happen at some point. Now, the international news. Sean, this story is incredible, isn't it? Elon Musk's SpaceX has been valued at around $350 billion US. That is up about, this is the staggering part, up about 65% in 3 months.
350 billion US, about $500 billion Aussie dollar. So SpaceX designs, builds and launches rockets and spacecraft, founded by Musk in 2002. It's also got offshoots like Starlink, the Starlink satellites, which float around the globe, and many Australians in regional and rural Australia use the Starlink services. It's private, so it isn't particularly easy to value, but shareholders have agreed to purchase shares. As a result, you get a valuation. According to Bloomberg, the per share price is now $185. Less than 3 months ago, it was $112. That difference, 65% appreciation in just 3 months. Of course, we had Donald Trump being elected in that time, and all of Elon Musk's assets seem to have done very well since Donald Trump was elected. It certainly makes SpaceX the most valuable private startup in the world.
And don't forget what else has happened during that time was SpaceX just absolutely, pardon the pun, rocketed into the global consciousness, and because of the big grabber.
Yeah.
And I know there's a much better technical term for it, but I mean that video of that big rocket booster coming back down to Earth and being caught, snatched out of the air by that landing pad really just made SpaceX a household name, right?
Oh, absolutely. It also has helped NASA out in terms of the International Space Station in recent months too.
Activate the space grabber. Sean, Colgate-Palmolive is soliciting feedback on possible new products from digital versions of prospective consumers. How does this work?
Well, Colgate has built what they are calling digital twins that are programmed to simulate a real-life consumer or real-life consumers. What they're trying to do is speed up the process of coming up with new and enhanced products by doing testing, according to a report on Reuters. The computerized consumers respond and react to claims and new features of possible new products. How, I want to know, does a digital version of me know what toothpaste tastes like? Don't know. Companies can also make digital twins of their supply chains, for example, allowing them to analyse where problems may arise and how to fix them. Consumer goods makers like Colgate are trying very hard to develop new versions of household staples like toothpaste, soap, toilet paper, etc. Basically, they need customers to buy more and to pay more because they've really had a tough time of it. Colgate-Palmolive got into digital twins. That one is beyond me.
Finally, Sean, coffee prices continue to run, with Arabica beans now at their highest level since records began in 1972, beating the previous all-time high from 1977. That's a long-standing record.
It sure is. Prices are up 80% this year after poor weather conditions in the world's largest producer, Brazil, hammered crops. Not just this year's crop, but it will really hurt next year's crop as well. Nescafe, the world's biggest buyer of coffee, is upping prices. I reckon your barista will too. Before we leave commodity markets, Brent crude is trading around $73 a barrel. Gold's up towards $2,700 an ounce. In fact, in Australian dollars, because the Aussie dollar is weak against the US dollars, gold is very close to a record high. The Aussie dollar itself, it's fetching about 63.6 US cents, Michael.
All right. Good place to finish things today, Sean. Up next is the Fear and Greed Daily interview. Your guest today, Damien Kasabji, who is the Chief Executive of the Tech Council of Australia, all about whether Australia is falling behind on AI. It's a great listen. It is in the Fear and Greed playlist on your podcast platform or at fearandgreed.com.au. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It is Thursday, the 12th of December, 2024. Make sure you're following the podcast and please join us online on LinkedIn, Instagram, X, TikTok and Facebook. I'm Michael Thompson and that was Fear and Greed. Have a great day.